So today, I'm going to talk about the intro call. How many people have been on an intro call before and it's a little awkward? Give me a thumbs up. Have some awkwardness you get on an intro call? Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Why? Because you don't know them, they don't know you. You got the call scheduled. Congratulations. Now what? That's what we're going to talk about today. By the way, shout out to all the moms out there. My mom passed away in 2000. She had lung cancer. My mom, just a quick inspirational story for all of you. My mom had three boys. My dad disappeared, and that's a story for a different time. And she didn't have any financial support from him. She was an art teacher making $4,500 per year. Okay, that wasn't a lot of money back then. Um, and she went into real estate, and the interest rates back then were 18.6%. Can you imagine buying a house at 18.6%? Yeah, yeah. So she went into real estate. She was an avid student, developing her skill set. She was listening to cassettes all the time, Dale Carnegie, Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, all the time. And she became a top sales rep for her company that she worked for in real estate, and then she became started her own real estate company, Jacqueline Horn Realty. And to this day, if I go back home, the kids of the people that were her customers and clients will say, "Your mom was so amazing." She developed relationships, and she had like 100% retention rate for selling a house. People would come back to her, listing a house, they would come back to her. So shout out to my mom and all the moms out there. We appreciate you. And I was my mom's free labor. When I was like 8 years old, she'd teach me how to answer the phone because she had a real estate company out of the house. Jacqueline Horn Realty, how may I help you? And so, anyway, it helped me with understanding how to communicate, and she took me all around, and I learned so much about sales, business, developing relationships. All right, so great audience today. By the way, hit the share button down there below if you want other people to join. And if you have some takeaways, share and say, hey, I attended Chaz's How to Turn an Intro Call into a Client, and this is my takeaway. I will be sending out follow-up messages afterwards, so please respond because it will help me get better. I'm actually doing this intro call because a person who responded to my message said, "Can you talk about the intro call?" I said, "Hey, that's a good idea. I'll do that." And so here we are today. So I covet your feedback on takeaways, things you'd like me to talk about, good, bad, and the ugly. Please respond. I put these on because I want to help you. I want to serve you. I want you to reach your potential, whether you become my client or not. My why is to help you see and realize your potential. Okay, so the intro call. Today's about turning an intro call into a client, and I'm not talking about the actual intro call, but the prospect, right? Okay, giving you some background, I've gone from the worst in sales in the world. I was 119 out of 119 sales reps when I first started my first sales job back when I was 24. And my boss became my mentor, and he said, "Chaz, you can be the top sales rep in the company, but, don't you hate those big buts? You have to follow the system and the process. We've spent hundreds of hours developing it. It's proven it works. If you follow the process, you'll be number one." I did follow the process. I didn't become number one, but I became number three. And I got that drilled into my mind early on, is having a system and process. In sales, in marketing, having marketing and sales work together in alignment, it's important that you have a proven process or you will waste a lot of time. And so today I'm going to talk about the process and system I use for the intro calls. All right. Thanks, Ann. All right. So, and just by the way, after that, I've been top in sales for over 25 years. at the top or near the top. And then I started my company back in 2016, and I've worked with hundreds of clients to help them get their business to the next level, help them see their potential, get that aha moment, and help them realize their potential. Nothing gives me more professional joy than that. Okay. Let me tell you about a lot of intro calls and how they go typically. And give me a thumbs up if you could relate to this. And having consulted with hundreds of businesses and taken thousands of calls, been on the recipient end as the salesperson schedules a meeting with me, or my clients will say, this is what I'm struggling with. You get into the intro call and you try to break the ice. Maybe you've heard something about rapport and maybe you try to do that. And then there's that segue that's kind of awkward. Can you relate to that? You start talking and then it's like, oh man, okay, so how can I get them to buy something from me? Can you relate to that? What do I say? What do I do? Okay, it's an awkward transition. Anybody with me on this? If you guys don't have any awkward transitions, maybe you should come up here and share with everyone. It is. Even to this day, I understand you have to make it seamless and it can be awkward. And that's why I'm going to talk about the 4 things that need to happen. But first, you get into the conversation and you have a conversation. Like I was talking to a guy recently, and he said something, and then all of a sudden he goes, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Seriously? Dude, you scheduled a meeting with me, and you're asking me what I do?" Fail. You never have a second chance to make a first impression, okay? And that intro call, people are skeptical. How many have had a bad sales, been on a recipient of a conversation, okay? That's been negative. And it's like, man, I don't want to buy from this person, from this guy, from this gal. Yeah, we've all had that. So you have to overcome that because people have their walls up. And so I'm going to talk about how to lower their walls and so you can get into a conversation. And I'm going to talk about the 2 conversations typically that happen. I mean, we could have additional types of conversations within intro calls, but I'm going to talk about 2, okay? People care about themselves, their needs, their wants. They don't care about you. They do care about how you can help them reach their goals and the outcomes you can provide, but you have to connect with them first, okay? All right, so let's set the table. The 4 things that are going on in each conversation, and I'm not just talking about a conversation with an intro call. Hey, Julie, great to see you. I'm not just talking about an intro call. I'm talking about every conversation, all right? You have your agenda, okay? Number 1, you have your prospect's agenda. 2, 3, you have the length for the meeting, the duration for the meeting, and then you have the meeting ends. Those are things that are going on, and the most important thing in the conversation is you, okay? And whether you are the authority, not authoritarian, the authority guiding and directing the conversation, or you allow them to control the conversation. I'm holding my fingers, if we had a video, I'm holding my fingertips together. And as I hold my fingertips together, I'm saying you are equals with your prospects. But now I'm taking my right hand, which represents you. The left hand stays down. So I'm raising my right hand above my left hand. You are the authority. You're equals. You're the authority. You're not better. You're not the authoritarian, but the authority. It's your job to guide and direct the conversation as the authority. If you go into a doctor's office, okay, who controls the conversation? The doctor. And you're comfortable with that because they have a degree and you're going in there because you have a need, you have a want, you have a problem, you have a pain. And if you control the conversation, it will be a mess. This is what I call the mess principle. If you allow your prospect to control the conversation, it will be a mess for you and for them. So you have to go into the conversation as the authority, having the right perspective, having the right mindset. That will set everything up. Whoever has we call this also a frame. Okay, whoever has the stronger frame directs the conversation. I can do an entire training on this. I just want to set that up so you understand it on a 101, maybe 201 level, okay? So, your attitude going into the conversation is the key. Go in with the mindset as the authority and enter the conversation with the intention to serve. The first step in our sales process is intention. Intention to serve. I had a person that came to one of these audio events once, and he came up on stage and he said, "Yeah, that intention to serve sounds great, Chaz, but I need to make some sales." He missed the whole point, okay? Let me set this up because we're going to talk about the 4 things: your agenda, their agenda, the duration of the meeting, and the meeting ending, and why those are important, and how they work in unison, and how it's important to be in control of those 4 things so people see you as an authority, they know you, like you, trust you, and you're able to get a clear next step, meaning a next meeting, okay? So, serving, back to the guy said, "I need to make some sales. That intention sounds good." Intention to serve takes a backbone, and you need to take your prospect through a proven process. And you need to have a backbone as with the right perspective, the mindset, the attitude, so that you know what to say, what not to say, how to say it. That's technique, that's tone. If you don't have these things in place, then they're going to see that you're not the authority. They're not going to be interested in talking with you. So it's very important that you show up as the authority. You go with the intention to serve. You take them through a proven process. Just like Ken Upton, my former boss who became my mentor, said, "Chaz, you can be the top salesperson." I was the worst, remember? "You can be the top salesperson in the company, but you have to follow the system and process because it's proven." Okay, so I'm going to list things out that are proven. If you follow this, then you can get to the next step, and you most likely, if it's someone who's qualified, okay, we don't want to get someone who's not qualified and try to coerce them into a conversation. That's not what intention to serve is. Intention to serve is about reaching people based on where they are. They have a need, and they're going to do the work, and they're going to be a good fit for you. Anybody have a client before that was a bad fit? Anybody? Yeah, it's, thank you, Ann. Yeah, we don't want to work with people that aren't a good fit. We want to work with people who, for me, who are coachable, committed, and are decisively act on what they learn, okay? So intention to serve takes a backbone. You're going into the conversation with the right intention to serve, with the right mindset, okay? And you need to go into the conversation and do your homework, your research. Intention to serve means you're going to do your research. And so you know and understand. It's so easy. There's no excuse for you not to do your research and have a good understanding of them, their background, their goals. You can watch videos of a lot of people. You can know their family, this background. It's essential to know that. And if you're going to serve, you need to know their background, okay? So you're going in with the right perspective. Your mindset is right. You see yourself as the authority. You're going with the intention to serve. You've done your research, all right? Now, I'm going to break this down into 2 different types of calls. You have a call with someone. And this is what I do with a lot of my clients who are newer, and they haven't been in the sales process. They don't understand the sales process, and they need to get comfortable with the sales process. Okay, and so I get them into as many conversations as possible so they can follow the process. They can understand how to build rapport. They can understand how to be the authority. They can understand what questions to ask. Okay, And this conversation typically is the network collaboration call. Okay, you connect with someone on LinkedIn and you schedule a meeting. About 2 weeks ago, I had Leah come up on stage and she said, Chaz, I can't schedule any meetings. And I asked her what she was doing. And I said, well, why don't you try using the voice message app on LinkedIn? And we worked out a little bit of a script here on stage. A day later, maybe it's 2 days later, she said, Chaz, I just scheduled 4 meetings. Okay. Wow. How cool is that? Now, what she was doing is she was going into a conversation. She had connected with someone on LinkedIn, and this is basically what she was doing. She's like, great to connect. This is my background. She was leaving a voice message. This is my background. Instead of just connecting and messaging back and forth, can we get on a 9-minute call so I can learn a little bit about you, learn a little bit about me? Maybe we can network, collaborate, or if you have some needs in your business, we can discuss more or get into another conversation at a different time. So by doing that, she scheduled 4 meetings. Now you're like, Chaz, but they may not be a prospect. Yes. And this is why I do this with my clients. Okay. And I'm going to get into the 4 things. You go in with the authority, you're going with the intention to serve, and you have the 4 things: their agenda, your agenda, duration of the meeting, and ending the meeting. The first meeting you have with a client, their agenda drives the conversation. Okay? And this is why it's so important not to push or coerce or to force your agenda on them. You walk into a retail store and someone walks up to you and says, let me get Wesley. I'm picking on you in the audience. Wesley, welcome. Well, they wouldn't know your name, but welcome to blank, the retail outlet. How can I help you? How do you respond to someone who does that? Just looking, right? Because you don't want to be sold. So you have to go into the conversation as the authority, the intention to serve, and you build rapport. Again, I can do an entire training on building rapport. I'm just going to give you an overview. Nothing happens well if you don't build rapport with your client, okay? With your prospect in this case. So if I get into a conversation and I'm talking about with someone, say Bob, and Bob and I've done my research. Bob and I have both coached for our kids' teams. All that information is out there. So I get into the conversation. Bob, great to connect with you. Before we get started, I'm curious. I saw that you coached your son's team. I saw some of the pictures. This is something I did with my son since kindergarten all the way through senior year in high school. I'm curious how that got started and what type of relationship, what type of bonding you were able to connect with your son, but also your son's friends. Okay. Now this happened in actual conversation. And you know what? This is rapport. Rapport is finding commonality from your background. That's the first step. And when you do this, it helps you break the ice. And that's building rapport. Rapport helps you bond with them, and it helps build trust. If you don't build trust and start bonding with them, the conversation will never go below the surface level. So building rapport is essential. And when you go into the conversation on an intro call, you have to be the authority. You have to be in control. You have to have the intention. And that's why if I'm talking to Julie here and say, Julie, great to connect. Before we get started, curious, I see blank. This is the common area that we both can relate to. All right. This helps you bond. This helps starting to build rapport. Rapport never stops, by the way. It's not like, hey, I'm going to build rapport in this one step and that's it. Rapport continues. You have to continue and continue and continue to build rapport. All right. So rapport is essential. Without rapport, without breaking the ice correctly, you're not going to have a conversation. They're not going to want to talk to you. Everyone has had a negative sales conversation, and you're going to turn people off. All right. Now, just one more thing about rapport. Rapport also is match and mirror. You match and mirror their speech. So if I'm talking to someone who's an introvert and very slow with how they talk, I can't just say, okay, Peter, hey man, let's go. I have to slow down. All right? And if you slow down your cadence with how they talk, you know what's going to happen subconsciously? They're going to say, hey, this guy's okay. In their mind, in their subconscious, they're going to say, hey, this guy's okay. He's not some fast-talking salesperson. Okay? So that's the importance of match and mirroring. It helps you connect with them on the subconscious level. And the opposite of that, I had a guy who was a president of a manufacturer. I walked into the office. I had done my research and all these different things. I learned something very important. He was promoted to president from plant manager. And so I walked into the office. His name is Doug. He was looking over his papers. He goes, "Yeah, Chaz, what do you got? PowerPoint or something? I'm real busy right now. Make it quick." Okay? This was my intro call with Doug. This was in person. And so, what do you do in that situation? Match and mirror. So I said, "Doug, you'll be glad I don't have a PowerPoint, but I just want to know how the heck you went from plant manager to president of this manufacturer. That's no small feat." So by me match and mirroring, Doug in his subconscious was probably saying something like this: "Hey, this guy's got some spunk. I kind of like him." And because I matched and mirrored Doug came around the table. He sat down next to me and he said, "You know what, Chaz? Let me tell you exactly how I did this." And he went on for a half an hour telling me everything about his problems, whatnot. And 45 days later, they became a $100,000 a month client. Booyah. Do you see the power of rapport? Everybody, are you with me? Rapport, connecting with them on commonality, and match and mirror. When you match and mirror who they are and connect from common background and going with the intention to serve. Don't use this just as a tactic to coerce and manipulate, okay? You can do it for that. This is how powerful it is. And that's why that intention is so important. Intention to serve, intention to serve. All right. Are you guys with me so far? Okay. So you get into the conversation, you break the ice, you connect with them with commonality, and you build rapport. When you build rapport, typically it's like 2 to 5 minutes. Like clockwork. Now, are there some exceptions? Yes, but just think Pareto's principle, 80-20 rule, all right? 2 to 5 minutes. So let's imagine we have a 20-minute intro call, and the 20-minute intro call is like Leah set up, and you're just going in with collaborating network. You're just trying to get the call and have a conversation with them. So here's the reason why this call is good. And then I'll talk about the negatives of just doing an intro call and, hey, great to connect on LinkedIn. Hey, can we have a quick conversation? Learn about one another, maybe networking, maybe collaboration. Maybe there's an area I can help in your business. Can we just make a quick call? Would that be okay with you? All right. Now, don't say, hey, I want to network and collaborate, and then just go in and try to sell them something. No. Go in with the intention to serve. The idea here with this type of call is to build rapport and to connect with them. How many people have had someone who you thought was probably not a fit, and maybe through text messages or email or something like this, it's like, I don't think this person's really interested. But you got in a conversation with them, and in the conversation, you developed rapport. They started to know you a little bit. They started to like you, and they started to open up, and they ended up becoming a client. Not only a client, but a great client. Anybody have that happen to you? Janet, Laura, anybody? Suzanne. Okay, thank you, Anne. All right, Christina, great to see you. Okay, yes. This is the power of rapport, and this is the power of these type of conversations. And the reasons why I do this with my clients is because, and by the way, I'm going to do a Q&A. You come up on stage, ask me any questions about what we're talking about or anything about LinkedIn strategy, sales, and whatnot, okay? So about 5 more minutes, and I'm going to jump into Q&A with you all, okay? And by the way, if you are struggling, if you don't have a predictable way to identify and attract clients to you, send me an email at chazhorn@chazhorn.com. This first last name at firstlastname.com, chazhorn@chazhorn.com. I'll give you a 20-minute sales and marketing analysis to point out the flaws, the holes within your process, sales process and marketing strategy, and most importantly, give you clarity on what you should do next. Clarity breeds confidence. So send me an email. I look forward to talking with you. Okay. So you break the ice. We're doing the network collaboration, potentially help them in their business. You build rapport. You do a good job with that. And then you move to that next phase. Okay. Remember, your agenda, their agenda, duration of meeting, and ending the meeting. Okay. So the first conversation, if you're scheduling it, you need to be the authority and you need to control the conversation. How do you control the conversation? The person asking the questions controls the conversation. So after rapport, 2 5 minutes, then you're getting into the heart of the conversation. And here's what you do so it's not some awkward, weird segue that repels people and they put their walls up. Like someone sitting down for a timeshare presentation. Okay? You don't want to replicate those people that do timeshares, right? I've never been in a positive timeshare sales presentation. This will be 45 minutes. You get to stay in our resort for 3 days. The timeshare presentation goes for about 2.5 hours. About an hour and a half of that is them trying to close me and overcome objections. Okay, so that's not what you should not do. So you build rapport, and then you get into the heart of the conversation. And here you go. Ready? Take notes. This question will remove all awkwardness and it will help you seamlessly move into the next transition, next part of the conversation. John, Ann, Jamie, Tammy, Mike, Ron, whoever is out there. If I'm talking to you, I'd say, remember duration of the meeting. You have to make sure that you set the framework so it's not like, hey, we're going to have a 20-minute call. And then 45 minutes later, it's like you're still talking. Anyone been in there? Yeah. So you need to set the frame for the rest of the call. You need to set the agenda. You're the authority and say, John, I know we only have 20 minutes or 15 minutes now. What would you like to accomplish in our brief conversation today? So that is a pattern interrupt. And with my clients who have not had much sales experience, I get them into as many conversations as possible so they can work the process and get comfortable, and they can fail with someone who may not be a prospect. It's better to fail with someone who may not be a prospect until you're just like, well, they're not qualified. Then all of a sudden you get a meeting and you just blow it because you don't have the skill set in place. Okay? So you go from 2 to 5 minutes, bond rapport, and then like, John, I know we only have 20 minutes or 15 minutes now. Now you've just let them know that the time is important to you and for them. And so I know we only have 20 minutes or 15 minutes now. I want to be respectful of both of our time. All right? It's not about, thank you so much for meeting with me. Thank you so much for meeting with me and putting yourself subservient. No, you're the authority. And so that's why it's not just their time, it's our time. Your time and their time. So I know we have 20 minutes or 15 minutes now. What would you like to accomplish in our brief conversation today? And they'll tell you. It's a pattern interrupt. I'll have my clients say, Chaz, but didn't you schedule the meeting? I said, yes, but you have to have a pattern interrupt to throw them off so it's not just the regular song and dance that the buyer, seller do just going on down the line where you're never getting below the surface. So the pattern interrupt is to go below the surface mindset. What would you like to accomplish in our brief conversation today? And if you have rapport, this is what will happen. If they're interested in you and you have your profile set up, so you're speaking to them, you're positioned correctly, they'll say, well, I'm kind of curious, and this will happen more times than not than you think. I'm curious how you help companies like me. Hey, okay. So the segue is seamless into just going. And then what you do is you just respond is you talk about outcomes, you go to 30,000 foot level. And so I would say, well, John, instead of regurgitating a bunch of information that may not pertain to you, is there something this is like a setup. If you just ramble on, and then you're going to turn them off. So drill down, get clarity, ask the question. Is there something specific you're looking at? So I'm not going to regurgitate or give you a bunch of information that may not pertain to you. Well, Chaz, I've been struggling scheduling meetings. And so I say, okay, what have you tried so far? Well, blah, blah, blah. You don't go real deep in this conversation. And so they give some information. I said, well, this is typically what I do. If you have an offer that meets or exceeds the expectations of your clients, I'll show you how to bring marketing so that you can identify, speak to the specific needs and wants of your target audience. And if you do that, they're going to see you as an authority. You're going to attract the right people. You're going to repel the wrong people. And once you attract them to you, a lead, I'll show you how to convert that into a meeting. Typically, my clients are scheduling qualified meetings daily and onboarding new clients weekly. Let's define qualified. Target market decision makers see you as an authority, told you about a problem they have. And did I get all those to see? Target market decision makers see you as an authority, told you about a problem they have. Okay? So that's a qualified prospect. And then I would ask an additional question, and then I'm going to shorten this process for you just so you can understand and take it to the very end. So Bob, based on what you said, Bill, whoever I'm talking to, based on what you said, this is what I find works best. Okay. So you have agenda, your agenda, their agenda. Their agenda drives the conversation. Your agenda follows their agenda in the intro call. When you understand what they want and they ask you the question, how can you help? Then you're giving them outcomes based at a high level. You ask additional question to get some information so you can speak directly to their need. And then you end with a hook to get them into the next conversation. So agenda, agreement for duration of the meeting. That's when you say, I know we only have 20 minutes or 15 minutes now. So you want to make sure and stay within that 20 minutes. Never go long, okay? I can think maybe on one hand with thousands of calls, I went over 20 minutes, okay? Then at the end, it's about getting a clear next step. Remember, agenda, their agenda, my agenda, their agenda, your agenda, agreement for duration of the meeting. You're setting that up. I only have 20 minutes, 15 minutes now. What would you like to accomplish? Then the meeting ends or is ending. So I know we're ending right now. This is what I find works best. Based on what you said, what I find works best is to schedule what I call a strategy session. Typically that's an hour. And this is about getting clarity for you, for me, where you are now, where you're looking to go, and what are those obstacles you're facing that prevent you from getting there. If I can help, I'll lay out a step-by-step strategy to get you from where you are to where you want to go. If I can't, I'll be upfront and I'll refer you to someone else. By the way, I'm not here to coerce you to try to get you into a meeting. So if you're not interested, no worries whatsoever. I really appreciate our conversation. Let me know if you'd be interested in scheduling it or not. And we can talk about what to do next. So by doing that, I just had a conversation with them. I uncovered the problem they had, why they were in the meeting, because typically people are not going to schedule a meeting with you if there's not something that they see in you that you could potentially help. But they're not going to tell you that information if you don't build rapport. Then you end the meeting. Very, very, very important. Okay. So the meeting ends. You have to end with a clear next step. Let me define this. And this is the last point, and then I'm going to take some questions. So I talked about the 2 calls, networking, collaboration. The other call would be if you schedule the call and say, based on, I'm going to give you a sales and marketing analysis. The same principles apply for that type of call. We're going a little bit long, so I don't want to go through the whole thing again. The same principles apply. You build rapport, you move into the conversation. The only thing you do differently is you say, I know you want to get a sales and marketing analysis today based on you emailing me. Is there something specifically you'd like to accomplish in the meeting? Same way. The rest of the meeting will go the same way. Okay? Now, the meeting ends, clear next step. Very important. This is where a lot of people fail. They get to, Terry, welcome. So I'm talking to Terry, and he says, yeah, that sounds good, Chaz. Tell you what, I need to think about it. Can you follow up with me in a week? All right. If you allow him to control the process, remember the mess principle? It's going to end up a mess for you and for them. So, Terry, the reason for the strategy session is to get clarity. This is what I do. This is why I do what I do, is to help you see and realize your potential. I'm not exactly sure that I'll be able to help you, but I wouldn't suggest scheduling this if I don't think I could. So you can utilize me to get clarity, or you can continue to think about it. And again, if you don't want to schedule the meeting, no worries whatsoever. I'm not gonna feel rejected or anything like that. Let me know if that would be something you want to move forward to. And again, please, 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 if you don't want to schedule it, don't. And then typically at that point in time, if Terry's really interested, he's going to say, yeah. I typically don't say, please, please, please. So I said, just please let me know. It's okay to say, no, I'm not interested. By doing that, you take away their thinking about it, and you're going negative. You're going for no. If you're not interested in scheduling it, no worries whatsoever. When you go for no, people are more likely to say yes. You know why? Because you're not the regular salesperson who said, okay, so I got 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. tomorrow and 1 p.m. on Friday. Which one works for you? Okay. Well, I got to think about it. Well, how about Tuesday? Do you understand when you go negative, you go for no, people are more likely to say yes. All right? Okay. So if you do this with an intro call, you build rapport, you understand that their agenda controls the conversation, and so you're asking them what they would like to talk about in this conversation, what they like to accomplish. Their agenda will drive the conversation, but you're asking the question, so you are controlling the conversation, okay? You're going with your agenda, but you're asking questions, and then you're answering, talking about outcomes, and then you're segueing to what I find works best. And then you schedule the next meeting. You go negative. What I find works best is to schedule blank. Let me know if you're interested, and if you're not interested, no worries whatsoever. Then, before you end the meeting, very important, before you end the meeting, you get the time, date in each other's calendar. It's agreed upon. It's accepted. I do this. I just take my calendar invite and I just move it over to the date. And a clear next step. Time, date in each other's calendar. You know who's doing what when. They need to have skin in the game. It's not about you dragging them through the sales process or pushing them through the sales process. They need to have skin in the game. Between my intro call, I have a 2-step process. It's the intro call, and then I have a strategy session, then they pay me, okay? So between the intro call and the strategy session, I have them fill out a form. And I say, bad news. Okay, remember the conversation is ending. This is so important. The conversation is ending. Their mind is already on the next conversation. A pattern interrupt. that gets their thinking, you get their attention. John, you want to know the bad news? Ann, you want to know the bad news? Bad news? Yes, I have some homework for you to do. I have a form for you to fill out. Now, very important here, you frame it in a way that makes sense to them. It's not, fill out this form. And I have a form for you to fill out. This will take you less than 5 minutes. This will help guide and direct our conversation. Okay? And I have a podcast. I'm going to email this to you right now with the form, the podcast, and I'm going to make sure you receive that. I just sent that. So the podcast will take 40 minutes. Please take time to watch the entire thing or listen to it. There's video or there's audio. You can listen to it. This is going to make our conversation more succinct. And so instead of an hour for a conversation, it would be like an hour and a half to 2 hours, because the podcast will give you a sense of how I can practically help you, and it will help us jump into the conversation right away. Does that make sense? Okay. So then I confirm they received the email. They understand what they need to do. We have the time and date into our calendar, and then we have the conversation. Okay, so time, date in each other's calendar. You know who's doing what when. They have skin in the game. They're doing work. Now they show up to the next meeting. It's not like 12:30. Oh man, I got to meet with Jamie right now. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, he's like trying to sell me something. No, they show up because they've done the work, and you engage in a conversation, and it becomes open dialogue, looking to understand the problem, and then you can solve it. As two people working together, one being the authority and the other one needing help, working together, open dialogue, you have rapport and trust, and you're looking to solve their problem. So if you do this, you go with the intention to serve, you have the right attitude, you're the authority, you go in with the intention to serve. With the first conversation, it's their agenda. Okay. Your agenda will parallel their agenda, and you ask that by asking, what would you like to accomplish? You agree and make sure, I know we only have 20 minutes or 15 minutes now. I want to be respectful of our time. And then you end with a hook to get them into the next conversation. This is what I find works best. Schedule a strategy session to get clarity on where you are, where you're looking to go. Okay? All right. So now that we talked about all of these things, does anybody have any questions about what we talked about? Put your hand up and come up on stage. By the way, if you're getting value from this, I'd like to use a different word than value because it gets overused. If you're finding practical ways to help you in your business, share this, please do, and tag me in the post and say, hey, this is what I got out of this. And also, I will be sending messages. Please respond, because I'm going to ask you a couple questions. What did you get out of this? What's something you'd like me to discuss in the future? Sound good? All right. Who has Thomas Fisher? Come on down. Hey, Thomas, introduce yourself and unmute yourself, bottom right-hand corner. Okay, you're not unmuted. Bottom right-hand corner, there's a mute and unmute button, and sometimes it's a little wonky. So I'm not sure if you're on your phone or on your laptop. And while I'm waiting for Thomas to unmute himself, anybody else have a question, thought about what we talked about, or sales and marketing question in general? Come on down. All right, so Thomas disappeared. Anybody else have any questions? Can I tell you something? The most important thing in sales is to face your fear and ask the question. One of the most difficult things for me to do was building rapport and understanding how to build rapport. Chris. Okay, so I was going to go about facing your fear, but Chris is up here. Chris, welcome.
Yeah, so it ties a little bit into facing the fear. I like your idea of doing kind of the form and the homework. everybody's so busy. Do you find that they actually take the time to go through an actual 40-minute podcast and then fill out the form? Or when you say the form is like a Google form, or can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, this is such a good question, everybody, because how many people had this thought? Man, Ches, they're not gonna spend 40 minutes to watch a podcast. Anybody think that? Okay, this is such a good question. So it's, yes. And if someone shows up and I start my strategy session, it's a Wufoo form, but I could use a Google form. I mean, there's forms with Calendly or Schedule Once, or I guess it's called Once Hub now. It's that form, by the way, is a qualifying form because I'm asking budgetary questions. I'm asking what they've done, how they've tried to resolve it, if they're in a place that they want to invest, that they have money to invest. And so I'm getting deep with this form, and understand this is a key component, everybody. A lot of times, if you're just doing this and you don't have leverage because of content or you did an event, it's a lot more difficult. But many people, they've seen my content for a long time, and so they have a sense of who I am, and that's what marketing is so powerful. If I was just using a sales process without marketing, then it would be a little bit more difficult. But again, having the stronger frame, having the right, being the authority, I do this. So it's like 97% of the time people watch the watch the podcast, listen to the podcast, and fill out the form. And Chris, this is what I do. 2 days before the event, before our strategy session, if I haven't, because when they fill out a form, it's online, it automatically comes to me. I'll give a 2 days. And by the way, when you schedule something within the next 5 business days max. Are there some exceptions? Yes. But that's what you want to do. Well, hey, how about like June 30th? I mean, there should, if like my mom just died, I'm going on vacation. Okay, yes, I get that. That would be fine. But typically, if people are scheduling more than 3 weeks out, the people who like cancel or whatnot are real low. I just had a guy that canceled the meeting for tomorrow, and he scheduled it like 6 weeks out. So to your point, if someone comes to the conversation, Chris, first thing I ask them, a little bit of rapport, because rapport never stops. It's we have that. We're breaking the ice. Great to see you. Blah 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 blah. And then I say, so tell me, I got your form right here. Thanks for filling that out. I'm curious. With the podcast, which part of tabs stood out to you the most, or was there something that spoke to you, or any feedback on that? And so if someone says, well, Chaz, I didn't have time to watch it, this is what I do. I'd say, if I'm talking to you, Chris, I can appreciate that we're all busy. And the reason why I have you listen to that is because it makes our conversation a little bit more succinct. And I'm going to cover some of the things that I'm going to talk about today, but typically instead of an hour, a little bit over an hour, it could be an hour and a half to 2 hours, because you haven't watched that. And so what I'm doing with this is I'm looking for them to apologize and say, should I reschedule? And I say, yes. Or I say, well, what should I do? I said, it's up to you. We can go into the conversation, but it's going to take a lot longer. Okay. Hour and a half to 2 hours, or we can reschedule and we can keep it around an hour. And I just put it on them. What would you prefer to do? Does that make sense? You're muted, Chris, by the way.
Totally, yeah, totally, it does, absolutely.
Yeah, if you do this, I tell you, remember, you're the authority. Remember, serving them, intention to serve takes a backbone. And so have them having skin in the game. How many times have you followed up and followed up and followed up just to find out that they're busy? This is why you end with a clear next step, time, date in each other's calendar, and they have skin in the game. You may not have a podcast for them to watch right now. You're thinking, okay, what do? I don't have a form. Start somewhere, get a form put together, have them get some information together that they should gather, because based on your conversation, I'm going to send you an email if you don't have your form set up, 5 questions. If you could respond to that email, and this is going to help give guidance and direction to our conversation. Always frame it in a way that makes sense to them. It's not about you saying, hey, you need to fill out this information. They're like, screw you, buddy. Okay. Dhruv, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Please correct me. Unmute yourself and welcome.
Hey Jazz, how are you doing?
Good. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, you pronounced my name correctly. Just a quick question, Jazz. I really understand, appreciate, the session. So I had a quick question regarding, if a prospect per se, is really hard pressed for time. I understand we've set the agenda, their agenda, and the duration is also set. But during that conversation, from 15 minutes, it goes down to say 10 minutes. So do we have to also go ahead with the agenda or just stick with their agenda only?
Yeah, this is such a good question. So I was listening to a client's, and just so you all know, I have 4 minutes and I have to jump into another meeting. So this is such a good question. I had a client who recorded the conversation. By the way, you should be recording your conversations. The best way to understand what you're doing right and doing wrong is to listen to your conversations. Okay. This was a Zoom and he recorded it. You get permission. That's a whole training I can give on that and how to set it up so it's comfortable and not like, hey, you're recording this, and making it weird. So he sent me the recording. I listened to it and he was getting towards the end. And he said, oh man, I know we only have a minute left, so I need to finish up right now. So I said, what? We'll call the guy Melvin, not his real name. I said, Melvin, why were you such in a hurry to get off the call? You are not even done. So now an intro call is one thing, okay? You really shouldn't go longer than that unless you have someone who's a real talker. If you have someone that's a real talker, then it's like, hey, can I be straight with you? Can I be direct with you? Sure. We only have 20 minutes. And is it okay if I keep you on point? Because I want to know all this other information. But if I have a hard stop, remember, you're the authority. So we only have 10 minutes left and we have a couple other items to do. Can we get back to this? Would that be okay? And I hope that didn't come across offensive. Nurture, 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 as my mentor said, is the 3 most important words in sales. And so they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And someone that does that, they've probably been, someone's talked to them about that before. But if you're getting to by an end of a conversation, I just had a client who signed up yesterday and there was 10 minutes left in the conversation. This was a strategy session. And I said, we'll call him Melvin because I don't have a client named Melvin. I said, Melvin, we only have 10 minutes left. There's probably about 20 more minutes of things that we have to cover. Is it okay if do you have time to go over or should we reschedule? And typically, if you're into a good conversation, they'll say, or unless they have something to go, but then you can schedule the clear next step then, or they've given you permission to go over. Does that make sense? Or is something different that you were asking on that? Please unmute.
No, that truly makes sense.
Yeah.
True. Thank you.
Yep. That's great questions. It's the littlest things that make a big difference. Okay. And I'll end with this. And if you want, send me an email, chazhorn@chazhorn.com, sales and marketing analysis. If you're a business owner or you want to invest in yourself as a sales or marketing person, this doesn't cost anything. It will only be 20 minutes. You'll get clarity. Send me an email, subject line, sales and marketing analysis. So I'll end with this. When I first got into sales, I learned the system and process, as I told you. Okay. And then I got lazy, and it was just about massive action, and I wasn't building rapport. Then I learned to build rapport, and then it's like, wow, I don't have to take as much action. I'm connecting with people on a deeper level, and my onboarding percentage, I use onboarding instead of closing percentage, is going up. Okay. So my onboarding percentage, so I built rapport. Then I understand the importance of being the authority, guiding and controlling the conversation as the authority, not authoritarian. And then I understood the steps in the sales process, how they all work together. intention, rapport, budget, decision maker, uncovering the problem, what it cost them, how it keeps them from reaching a goal or objective, and how it most importantly affects the decision maker or decision makers, right? Only then can you present an offer. Okay, I was presenting offers all the time. But then when I learned and understood, you can't present, well, you can, but it's going to fall on deaf ears because you haven't reached them emotionally. You haven't uncovered the cancer. A lot of people slap band-aids on things. Oh, well, that's not too bad. John, it sounds like you're doing okay. You got to go deep. You got to uncover the cancer so they realize it's like, oh, Chaz, this is cancer. If you don't hear colorful language like this, bleep, 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 I have 20% of the time I have people that cry when I'm having conversations with them in the strategy session. I don't go into with the intention to make them cry. When you talk about someone who has a business and they're supporting their family, their spouse is relying on them, their kids is looking up to them, and they're not doing that, it's an emotional thing, okay? So it's the little things. If you make 1% improvements, learn how to build rapport, learn how to get the intro call with the 4 things, how to get a clear next step, time, date in each other's calendar, you know who's doing what when, you'll get better and better and better. And understand this, anytime you try something new, it's going to be flawed. You're going to fail. Always own the failure and ask yourself the right questions. And if you do this, you'll get better. The worst thing to do when you fail is like, why does this always happen to me? That's a stupid question to ask yourself. Your brain will answer the questions that you ask it. And if you ask, like, how can I learn from this? Your brain will tell you. If you ask questions like, why does this always happen to me? I don't know why I'm saying it like that, but then your brain will say, you're an idiot. So try new things. If you need help, send me an email. Share this. I appreciate it. It's great to be connected with you on LinkedIn, and thank you for showing up, everybody. By the way, Thursday, sales in ChatGPT. It's actually sales, ChatGPT, and AI. Same time on Thursday. Join the conversation. It'll be another LinkedIn Live. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody.